Hello and welcome to the Law Corner. We've already had a take where there's been heavy breathing on the the tape, so if you hear some heavy breathing, we'll try to work out who it is. But who have we got on the sofa today? Go on, one of you can. Start us off.
All right, I'll start on this corner of the Law Corner. I'm Mod Stu, Senior Content Developer.
I'm Mod Raven, Lead Content Developer.
And I'm Mod Rowley.
And I'm Mod Osborne. So we're going to talk about a god. And I've decided to go for Seren. I think it's ladies first.
Oh.
So we're going to chat about Seren. Does anybody want to kick us off on a kind of a memory of Seren?
A memory of Seren.
Well, we could start off with the swimsuit. Should we start talking swimsuits? This was you.
It was not me. I was not, a big fan of the swimsuit. And I'm really glad that we got to reinterpret her in the Sixth Age.
That's it.
When we got the Seren quest, one of the first things we wrote down was, we need a new look for Seren when she's reformed. Maybe something a bit more elegant than a swimsuit.
So for those who don't know, the Fate of the Gods, we kind of concept. It was Modian.
Yeah, it was
put together a slightly more kind of streamlined Seren. That we didn't really imagine it's very godly. It looked like a bit like a swimsuit, and some people kind of picked up on it.
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't obviously the focus of that quest.
Yeah.
And I was kind of lucky to even get her in the first place, I think.
Yeah.
Just for those memory crystals.
Yeah, because that could easily have been cut because she didn't make a big, it wasn't a big part of Fate.
Yeah, so it might have just been a voice, for instance. But we wanted some, quite a few wow moments in the quest, I think. Yeah. A few reveals.
I think that came after Missing Presumed Death, where we couldn't show many of the gods because they weren't concepted. And there was that feeling of we wanted to have a big chamber full of gods, and I think if we did it again, we'd like to have had more people there.
Yeah.
Had a tree brassica and a tree marimbo, and so it was good that we got
the brassica there. I think is spot on. It's just a cabbage on a stool, which I think is perfect.
I love that people spotted that brassica was still there. Yeah. They're just stubbornly sitting there. I'm not moving. It's cracking. So, but she wasn't always like that with the god letters. I think she looked a bit like a chandelier. I think this kind of floating crystalness.
She was just sort of a fractal pattern before.
Yeah, so we thought we'd bring some personality in there.
Yeah, and I think we captured a little bit of that again with the kind of core that you see in Prifddinas and the Tower of Voices.
Yeah, but there's a lot of male gods, or at least when we came to the Pantheon, when we first started, there was a lot of male gods. I think it was very noticeable, and that was something we wanted to change. I mean, obviously Seren was there, but I think that kind of led to things like Marimbo's supposed sex change.
Yeah.
But certainly the elder gods as well.
And Tusker being female.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just to bring more of that in, because the elder gods, I guess it's very traditional cliche, I suppose, the Earth Mothers. But we've got plans for how the femininity comes into it in their character models. You see that in Mar, for example.
It's kind of one of the reasons I think we wanted to make Seren a strong character, and I think the kind of earlier look undermined that slightly.
Yeah. And so you, obviously within the light, brought in a slightly different look. What's your thoughts behind it?
Well, we wanted to have something a bit more sort of elvish and elegant, but also a little bit more alien. So if you look, the previous version, the swimsuit edition, as we're going to call it now, because we've started, so we'll stop, has very kind of obvious human features, has very sort of human face. It's got the additional eyes, but still very kind of humanish. Whereas with the new version, we wanted to have that kind of elven elegance, which I think we got in the sort of look and the robes and the kind of the ways she moves, but mixed in with just enough weirdness. So we don't show her face; it's implied but never shown.
I remember reference points. So some of the first concepts had almost like Arabian influences, Arabian kind of clothing, and then we moved towards. I don't know if you've seen The Fifth Element. But the opera singer in The Fifth Element, we were drawing on that a little bit.
We obviously bring quite a bit of that in. I mean, you can see quite a lot of that influence in the current design.
I was going for other Fifth Element characters, unfortunately, but we, for Ruby Red or something. But no, I think we did well with the opera singer. And it wasn't always the plan to feature Seren like this. I remember being up on stage, I think it was RuneFest a few years ago. We were talking about a plan that Seren could come back in a world event. A world event of collecting crystals, where you gather together the parts of her as a community and build her as a community. Do you remember any of that? Or any of the plans for that?
I vaguely remember it. It was one of those plans that mixed in with a number of other plans that were kind of, we could do this and we could do that, and there could be these and there could be pregnancies and all manner of things. And,
the pregnancy, that's another one.
But that kind of changed, I think, because of what we wanted to deliver kind of changed. And
Yeah.
obviously Rune Labs changed it as well because players wanted to bring her back in a
It's
quest.
a different mindset for how we're creating stories this year as well.
Yeah.
It's not we know what we want to do. We know the tales we're going to tell over the course of the 12 months.
Yep.
It's not as if we just got lots of things that would be fun to do. And it's just when it comes to like commissioning a quest, we'll go to look at that pool and grab one. I don't think it's really like that this year. And Seren plays a part
Streamlined.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been working on a little bit on the kind of the future paths of story, maybe even beyond Sliske's endgame. You know, Seren plays a part.
Yeah, I mean, she's going to be, shall we say, major player, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the whole connection with the Elder Gods there and with Zaros too, and you kind of have to play on that relationship.
Yeah, to be honest, there's nobody, even more so than Zaros, who is more central to all of our core storylines. If you kind of type to Guthix, you know, you've got the Seren connection to Guthix.
She's been there from the beginning,
Zaros
yeah.
to Seren. You've got the Elder Gods to Seren. And we're going to reveal a bit more of a connection to the Madrat as well. I mean, it's really only the Dragonkin where she doesn't really kind of tie in.
Well, actually, no, you say that. no.
But that connection to the Elder Gods is another thing that featured into her look. We did Fate of the Gods. Do you want to talk over, like, you know, that facial pattern and even her symbol? We were talking about how her symbol keys into things.
Oh, right, the way... How does it? Oh, what was it again?
So if you took Seren's symbol, which had existed for a fair amount of time, and Zaros' symbol,
Yeah.
and if you move those two together...
Oh, right, yeah, we were connecting them to the symbols for Mars and Venus, weren't we?
Yeah.
Just the straight diamond and the
And if you place them in together, it almost looks like an inset gem that you get in the Madrat.
which is the Majorat gem, yeah. And
Yeah.
then the whole, like we were saying, that the circle was the symbol for man and the diamond for woman, and then Seren's is a shattered diamond, so you've got the kind of marks in it, and then the Zaros symbol is derived from a combination of the two.
Yeah,
and
but
the
also
Majorat as well.
we were looking at because Zaros goes in 4 different directions.
Yeah.
And then it's the elements,
Those were the ancient elements.
the
yeah.
ancient elements.
And the cross being the broken diamond, effectively.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
Man without woman, effectively.
And then we had those eyes, which was obviously there to be alien,
Yep.
but also is...
It's kind of symbolic, I suppose, of a power level. It's like the stronger you are magically, the more eyes you've got.
I like this, the kind of like Isaac Clarke, you know, just the power levels rise up. Yeah, I could see that. And we wanted to get that connection across across Zaros, this familial connection, which are the 6 eyes, is it?
It's 8 for
8.
Elder Gods and for Zaros and Seren, yeah.
Yeah.
And we wanted to, I think we did a lot of telling in that quest rather
Yeah.
than showing, so it was nice to be able to show some things rather than
And
just
let people draw the lines.
explicitly state things.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So if we've done Seren, are there any other things that you want to talk about with Seren? I mean, have you ever really kind of worked with Seren?
Well, I worked on Prifdinus to some extent. It was rather fun, for example, doing the Ithil section and writing for Lady Ithil and filling out some of the background behind Crystal singing and how they're
That's
pioneering
it.
that.
Which is another thing we can't really miss out on, which is the connection with the elves to Seren. I mean, you wrote a little bit about that. Did you do anything with the... I mean, it was more kind of Hefin and perhaps Melia was that connection, that maybe the addiction to Seren. I mean, were you involved in that?
I also did the Hiffen section, but there wasn't very much additional detail in there, really. It was more about just building things like agility courses and...
Gotcha, yeah, that kind of culture of the elves, which obviously was great fun to do. But the addiction to Seren, that's quite, it's kind of a risky area. You went into that within...
We covered it in Prifdinus originally,
Yeah.
in the lore drops there, which is great fun to write. And then we went into a bit more detail in... what's it called?
Your own quest?
The Seren quest, Light Within.
It's the whole within the light within thing.
Yeah,
I have to stop myself on which one
vanished.
is it?
And so we go into a lot more detail there. I wanted to highlight kind of how twisted it is, how dark it is. Hence, we have the whole Tarthian thing with those poor elves that were so desperate for Seren that they got bits of crystals, just had the tiniest sliver of her energy, and then basically rammed them into themselves so they could, feel her close.
Yeah.
So it's quite dark, which I think is an important thing with Seren, because one of the things that I see with a lot of players is that Seren is, she's the good guy, she's the light goddess, she's all nice and happy and smiles and joy, and it's totally not true.
But maybe not, out
She's
of
not
any fault of her
evil,
own.
but she's not pure good, in the same way that Zaros isn't pure good or pure evil either, which I think is important.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to say of all the gods, she's the character I think that I'm happiest with how that she's developed.
Yeah.
And especially in parallel with Zaros, there were very obvious mirrors to each other, but it's not a straight one is good and one is bad. I mean, there are inflections and just little changes here and there. So while it might be mirrored, it's slightly different.
Yeah. Is it both have, I mean, we may not have gone into a great deal of detail in Fate of the Gods, but you could probably see little bits of it, but they both had to deal with a strange parent, and had to deal with not a power over each other and other people, which is something we're going to go into more detail about.
That was one of the very first things I think we established, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Just
and we've got these
connection
mirrors
to each other.
They're very, they're not quite the same, this power, but it's certainly there. And they've both used that in different ways. One of them might have, deliberately not used it or tried to go away from that power.
Yeah, and you can also see that they've both kind of manipulated mortal life as well. And I think a lot of that comes from their origin from Ma.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a sensibility that they've picked up on, much like a genetic trait about potential.
Yeah. Yeah, superb. So thank you so much for listening, and next time we're going to be talking about Zaros.
And so, Mod Krista, what is your favourite RuneScape tune?
Oh, it has to be for the 15-year anniversary, the dance emote. Mod Bond made it specially for us. It's a little 30-second amazing dance tune, I guess, that you can boogie to with the Sonar Jazz above you. And yeah, it just fits it perfectly. It's got the right enthusiasm, right bounce to it, and it's a little bit cheesy. I'm sure you wouldn't mind me saying that.
And we'll cut to that now. Hello and welcome to the customer support segment of this podcast, where each and every episode we'll be looking to give you an insight into the wonderful world of customer support. And this episode we're going to talk about our community helper scheme, and more importantly our forum community helpers we introduced just a few weeks ago. So I'm Mod Infinity, I'm one of the operation managers here in customer support. I'm joined by three other members of the team who are going to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Mod Kelvin, I'm the head of customer support.
I'm Mod Mix, senior operations manager.
And I'm Mod Steve W, and like Infinity, I'm an operations manager in customer support.
So in this episode, we're going to talk about our community helper scheme, and more specifically, the forum community helpers we've introduced just a few weeks ago. So for those who aren't aware or haven't seen the kind of announcement about what community helpers are, Steve, you can give us a quick rundown as to what they are and what they do.
Yeah, so I mean, we've always known that, players love helping each other and there's loads of knowledge out there. And actually here in Jagex, we're a relatively small customer support team. And with all these people willing to help, it just seemed a really good opportunity to actually just sort of make that a bit more official. And I think people have always been offering this advice, and it's really just having a sort of clear platform where people can sort of offer good advice, good support. They get a bit of insight from us in terms of, how to deal with things. And it means that we can cover kind of 24/7, time zones all around the world, make sure that people are getting responses really quickly from our volunteer helpers. And it's just really like, it's like having a cool friend in the game that just knows everything and can help you out, and they're there to sort of give you advice in the moment.
Okay, it sounds great. So where will the community see these helpers?
Yeah, so people will probably already know the sort of existing things where we have P-mods in game and F-mods on the forum, so people will be familiar with that. It wasn't that long ago that we introduced Twitter helpers, so people helping out on that platform. And then the most recent thing is people actually helping out on the forums. It's slightly separate from the forum moderator structure. These are just players on the forums that have a little community helper title, so you'll be able to spot these people on the forums. And they're just really providing on the spot, almost instant sort of help and advice and friendly advice to people. And it's kind of, they're really giving tips for people, how do I do this? Where do I go to find this piece of information? Mm-hmm. They're dealing with this stuff all the time. They're really familiar with it. They're really keen to help, and they can just, quickly give that kind of, almost a steer in what to do without people having to go through a kind of formal customer service contact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you say, these haven't been brought in by Jagex. These are players who have identified as those helping others out and have done for years, and we're just giving that title to make it more verified, a seal of approval that their advice is correct.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. I mean, there are people that were really almost doing this anyway, so people will probably recognise the sort of names that they're seeing in the community helpers on the forums. They're people that have always been very helpful anyway, and we've just kind of tried to recognise that, make it a little bit more supported and official, and make it easier for people to identify, who is a recognised community helper, so that you know that they're kind of giving spot-on advice, and that's absolutely right.
Okay, and Kelvin, I think people could potentially get confused about the differences between a community helper and a PMod. What are the key kind of differences between those two groups?
Okay, so I mean, a PMod is visible in game, and I suppose is involved in a couple of things. One, in terms of kind of in-game events and community building activities, and secondly, they've the ability to put a PMod mute should there be a situation in game that they feel that warrants it. Community helpers don't have anything kind of like that. They're active on the forums, and actually specifically within the community-led support forums. So what we've tried to do is ensure that the community helpers who are active on the community-led support forums are there to kind of help out players who have kind of nice, kind of easy sort of general questions that can be answered by fellow players. Because, people know, a lot of people know a lot more than I do about the game and kind of how stuff works. So actually it's just a kind of way for people to realise that if it's someone with a community helper title who's posting on their thread, they know that person is kind of trusted, they know what they're talking about. And also behind the scenes, there's kind of a support framework for community helpers. So if there are any questions that they're unsure of kind of how to deal with, then they might kind of drop a line to us, sort of JMods here at Jagex, and we can kind of give them answers and help out, or alternatively, steer that person right through to be able to send us a ticket.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just to be clear, just like PMods, they can't access people's account settings or unban accounts or anything like that,
yeah.
But they can give really solid information as to how they can do those things or provide the right official support page to those kind of issues, right?
Yeah, and the only extra thing that we've given to forum community helpers is the ability to move threads, and that's in very kind of specific conditions. So what we've kind of said is, if there's a forum thread in general, which is clearly a customer support issue, we said, look, the best place for that to be is in the community-led support forums. So we said to community helpers, go ahead, move that into the community-led support forums, because then there's more of a chance of them getting an answer to their query in that place. And that's the only additional kind of tool, if you like, that community helpers have. Now, some are PMods, some are Fmods, some are both, some are none of them at all. So you might see a community helper with a green background posting on the forums, but that's just because they're an Fmod and they do kind of Fmod things in terms of moderating the forums in other areas. But really, you should expect to see community helpers active purely in the account help, payment support and tech support, community-led support forums.
Okay, sounds awesome. So it seems like community helpers are obviously really helpful people, and we've kind of given them the tools and the abilities to kind of provide the best support possible, and that framework behind them as well, that in case they become a little bit stuck or need a question answered, they've got that backing of Jagex there too. Now, last time I checked, PMods were about at the number of 2,000. How many helpers are there? Are 2,000 helpers? What are the numbers-ish for helpers?
I think there's about, I can't remember exact numbers off the top of my head. There's either 10 or 12 Twitter helpers and roughly the same number of forum community helpers. So there's not a huge number. That will grow over time as kind of more and more people are giving regular support out on Twitter or more active in the community-led support forums. Then potentially we'll offer more invites. But I think we've been really kind of clear to ensure that the guys that we have sent the invites out to have been doing this for a sustained period of time. They're already kind of trusted and known kind of in the community, certainly in the forum community, for kind of giving that help. So, if someone kind of appears over the last week or so and starts giving lots of help, that's great. It's really kind of well welcomed, but we probably wouldn't send an invite until someone's been doing that for a really, really long time and is really an established kind of helpful member of that forum community.
Okay, that makes sense. So if I am somebody who provides great help and I'm on the forums a lot, is there a thread I can apply to become a helper on? How do I join the scheme?
Well, we're always looking for, really helpful and supportive people. So, there isn't a set process for it. It's one of those things where, we'll just spot people that sort of naturally float to the top just by being really sort of helpful in the community. So, if it's something that does interest you, be on the forums, be helpful. Make sure you're giving good advice and the right advice, of course. It's not just based on something like, post count. We're not looking at that sort of thing. We're just looking at the quality of the advice. Are you actually helping people, sending them to the right place? Fixing problems where you can, where it's just a question of a fairly something simple, quick fix. But yeah, the people that do that, they're going to be spotted on the forums or on Twitter, where we can see people just stepping up and just saying, hey, I know the answer, I can help this person out right here, right now by just, sending them to this link or so on. They're the people that are going to kind of stand out. And as this progresses and as we look to invite more people, then they'll be sort of top of the list of people we'll be looking at.
So you sound slightly like our helpful forum moderator teams. What are the differences between a helper or a forum helper specifically and the forum moderators we have?
Well, the forum moderators, obviously, they're active across all of the forums. So it's not just customer support or account-related things. They're dealing with all the other forums. So that's their specialist area. That's the thing that they do. And they've also got, a lot of support in terms of moderating the forums. So, dealing with things like forum help and that type of thing on the forums. And when you get the odd bit of rule breaking and things like that. So that's the kind of specialisms of forum moderators. The community helpers, that's not really their thing. What they're all about is kind of helping people and just posting advice in the moment and just within those specific forums as well. So it's, a community helper is not necessarily the same sort of attributes of the people that you'd like to be forum moderators. They do have two sort of distinct different roles, but they're just using the same platform, which is the forums.
Okay, cool. That makes sense to me. We've kind of started off with Twitter helpers, as you mentioned earlier, and then a few months after we've introduced forum helpers. What are the future for helpers? Should we expect to see them in game on other platforms? What are your thoughts on that, Kelvin?
So I think there's an absence of customer support in game apart from being able to kind of click the support link. So something we kind of have talked about, and I think we'll experiment with it in the coming months, are kind of customer support sort of friends chat channels, and potentially then the community helpers might want to kind of jump in and be ranked in those chat channels, and JMOs can kind of appear in there periodically. And I think it's just something that we need to kind of experiment with, see if it kind of works for support or not. But definitely we'll be doing that over the next few months.
Okay, so it sounds like there's lots of really good and positive things which are coming out of these community helpers. Well, what would you say, ModMix, is the one big win that these helpers offer the community?
So for me, a really big win is about kind of getting your answer quicker than waiting for a ticket. So, one kind of thing that I do, I've been a big gamer for the last 15 years. If I need to find support, I'll usually go into a forum to find it. So, having the option to kind of, get your support within 24 hours, 48 hours if you send in a ticket versus getting an instant response on the forums is, for me, a massive big win.
Okay, so another important change we made was to the structure and the way that the community-led support forums work. And I know that's kind of been received really well throughout the community. So, Steve, I don't know if you can expand on why we decided to do that and what the changes are?
Yeah, so previously on the forums there were sticky threads that people could post on. There was one for sort of the main key topics, but obviously one of the things with that is that the threads became quite long. There's lots of posts on them. It's quite difficult to sort of hold conversations and follow topics through there. It just all got lost in great big threads. And a lot of player feedback, a lot of things we heard was actually that wasn't the most friendly way to do it. It wasn't the most useful way for people to be able to track their own issues. So actually we just kind of acted on that feedback and responded by actually opening the forums up now so players can create their own individual threads, start their own topic, which is specific to their inquiry. We've got a few little back-end tools as well that enables us to see where community helpers are helping people. We can see where they're posting, and we can see if threads are not being answered and kind of flag them or make sure someone picks them up. So having that structure of individual queries presented as forum threads is a really good way for us to see that people are getting the help they need.
I think it's worth mentioning that these community helpers aren't just focusing on account help issues. They're also on technical support forums and payment support. So whatever your issue is about, there should be an area that you can post your question in. So there's been a lot to take in, but you can find out all the information you need on our community helpers on a thread called Meet the Community Helpers in the Community Home Forum. And there'll also be a list of all the Twitter helpers on that thread as well, so you can identify quickly who have officially marked as helping us out on Twitter. I think it's important to mention, actually, it's not to say that if you're not a helper, you can't provide support and you can't provide help. We'd always encourage you that if you want to help others out, then you do that, whether it's in game, on the forums or on social media. And if we recognise that over a long period of time, then you should definitely expect us to be inviting you to the official scheme. But it definitely doesn't mean that you can't be providing that support. So just a final thing on our current community helpers. It's all new to us, it's new to them. And a huge thanks to them who have contributed fantastically. I think there's hundreds of threads and questions in the support forums, and they're all being answered often within minutes. So it's great to see that. A big thumbs up from us here at Customer Support and everybody who's providing help.
I know when we were first talking about the names of the people who've been invited to the first group, and I thought, this is going to be really good, but actually it's sort of surpassed that. They've just been fantastic. They've really stepped up, and I think it's just been a fantastic improvement to the support that's offered there.
Yeah, no, they seem to be really enjoying it, and obviously there's been a lot of kind of feedback from them about can we do this, can we do that, can you help us out with this question, and there's a nice kind of good sort of flowing conversation, and I'm really pleased they're enjoying it. That's what it's about. It's a part of the community, we hope, of RuneScape, and that's why we're there supporting it and why we created that initiative.
Okay, brilliant. So all around, huge success, and as ever, if you need any more information, you can check it out on the forums. I hope that's been insightful for you, and it's kind of giving you some information about the community helper scheme. And as ever, if you have any questions about it, we'll be on the forums ready to answer those. So that's all from Customer Support this week, but make sure you tune into the next episode where we'll be unveiling all the information about our brand new support centre. Thank you very much for listening, everybody, and we'll see you all on the next podcast.
Bye. See ya.